So I thought we could have a little fun doing something that I've done a couple times on the channel, but like on a live stream. So I figured, you know what, let's have some fun doing this on a video. And as I say that, I'm gonna turn this light off because I don't need all this extra light since there's a bunch of daylight outside and like, you know, exposure and all this kind of stuff. So anyways, I figured let's do tier list because I haven't done a tier list in a while and I haven't done one for Resident Evil at all. So I thought it'd be a good time to do a tier list for Resident Evil while my microphone kind of just like falls towards me. Can you not? Can you not? Please and thank you. It's still doing it. Whatever, man. Whatever. All right. So we're gonna rank the games because I keep asking what's my favorite. And the thing is, like, my favorite is different than what I feel is the best Resident Evils. So we're gonna do two tier lists. This tier list is gonna be what I feel like are the best to worst Resident Evils, and then we're gonna do a different tier list that is my favorite to least favorite Resident Evils. And they are very different. They are, and there's some reasons for it, and I'm gonna explain as I put which ones. I'm gonna explain why I feel like they are where they are. So we got S rank, A rank, B, C, D, E, and F, similar to how you would get ranks in the actual games for playing the games. So we're gonna go and rank these now. Let's start with the original. All right, the original it's good, right? The original is good. It's not the greatest because it doesn't hold up like some other of the older games do, right? The dialogue is cheesy. The gameplay these days is not. It does not hold up. I'm gonna give it a solid B. It was innovative at the time. It was scary when it came out. These days it's laughable, you know. But it does have some of the most memorable lines that we still make fun of, like Jill sandwiches, or the master of unlocking, or I have this. What is this? You know what? Most of those lines are Barry lines. I just realized that. They're mostly Barry lines. I love Barry. Barry's so awesome. But anyways, I'm going to go with a B on that one because it really doesn't hold up. Now, let's go to Resident Evil 2. Not the remake. Let's go to the original one. Where are you? There you are. Resident Evil 2, the original. The original Resident Evil 2, I feel, does hold up. You know, the dialogue isn't as cheesy as Resident Evil 1. It does have some moments like Claire shooting the rocket launcher at Mr. X when you're on, I think it's like side B or whatever, and she's like, you know, something big guy. I don't know. You know, there's a couple of cheesy dialogue lines in there, but overall, it does hold up. Plus, you got the zapping system, which was fantastic. So whatever you did in side A would affect your side B playthrough of the other character and vice versa. So, and it was the first Resident Evil that was on 2 discs, and the replay value was drastically improved upon from Resident Evil 1 because of the fact that you had at least minimum 4 different playthroughs for the characters. And then you also had extra missions such as Hunk and Tofu, which was a lot of fun as well. Plus, right, so there's even more because plus you could see the fate of Brad Vickers before Resident Evil 3 happened, and you know, it's a lot of good things in Resident Evil 2 remake. Plus, it has one of my favorite weapons, which is the custom shotgun. It was so satisfying to just blow apart zombies with that thing. So next one, we have Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, which shout out to Resident Evil 3 Nemesis because we're getting a remake. But Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, and that's gonna go, whoops, that's not a C. I'm gonna actually put that as a B. Okay, so here's why. It was a little bit more action based than Resident Evil 2, but it did feature my favorite character, which is Jill. Carlos was fun, But again, we kind of went back to a little bit of the cheesy dialogue in the sense of like bad accents and stuff like that, like Nikolai and Mikhail. It was, you know, it was good. It was good because we got to experience the city during the outbreak, right? So we got to experience Jill as she left the city, and the game took place during, or before, during, and after Resident Evil 2. So we got to see the fate of Raccoon City. We got to see Brad Vickers before Resident Evil 2. We got to see how he died. And there was just a lot of good things about it. Now, what hurt it is the fact that unless you're like a big Resident Evil 3 fan like myself, the replay value wasn't as high as Resident Evil 2. So that kind of hurt it with the one player only kind of campaign. I would have liked to have maybe had a Carlos campaign. Maybe the remake kind of fixes that. We'll see what happens. Resident Evil Code Veronica. That's a C. That's a C, in my opinion. And the reason why is because it's the first Resident Evil game that was long. And while that's not really a bad thing, mostly because more Resident Evil is always a good time, the problem with Code Veronica is that it felt long. There was so much needless backtracking, and I don't remember how long it took me. Like probably anywhere between 6 to 10 hours. You know, I dreaded playing Code Veronica. I wanted it to be over when I was playing it. Plus, you have the return of Chris, who's not my favorite character. I don't like Chris. I don't like him. Never been a Chris fan. And it just, I don't know, man. I don't know. It was just one of those things where it's like I feel like it was a good concept. I'm glad that they decided to make it longer. Plus, it gave us the best version of Wesker at that point. That gave us the cool, calm, collected Wesker that we all love. And you know, it did good things, but man, I just did not like how long and it felt with the backtracking and all of that. So yeah, that's why it gets a C for me. Next up, we got Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4. This is a tough one because I want to put it at S rank, but I also want to put it at A rank. And the reason is because of Ashley. I hate Ashley. Oh my god, that plot device is so bad. It's so bad. Leon, help! Help me, Leon! I want to just let Ashley die. But when you do get to be able to put her in a night costume or a night outfit, it's just so much better. But I'll put it at an S for now, but it might get knocked down to an A rank. It's either a high A or a low S for me. Don't kill me on that, guys. I just not a huge fan of like Ashley. Everything else in the game is fantastic. It did bring back the horror a little bit from where we left off in Resident Evil 3. Although Code Veronica did have a little bit more of the horror aspect as well. But Resident Evil 4 leaned a lot more on the action-based aspect of it. Plus, I hate the quick time events. I hated that. You know what? The quick time events in Ashley might knock it down to A rank. But we'll see. Alright, so next up, we got Resident Evil 5. It's going to be a C rank. Resident Evil 5. Too much action. I hate the action-based Resident Evil games. It's too much action in it. It had some good stuff. The Sheva AI was horrendous. If you play in this co-op multiplayer, it's a lot better. But man, the Sheva AI was just bad. Just bad. Most of the time, you end up not giving her any ammo because she just wastes it. Right? It's so bad. And again, the action based in it, I was not a fan. Not a fan. Resident Evil 6. D. Alright, now, Resident Evil 6, if you take out the Chris campaign, the game would have been a lot better. The game suffered from trying to do too many things. But some of the things that it did really well. The action, again, I'm not a fan of the action-based stuff in Resident Evil games. But the action-based stuff in Resident Evil 6 is done extremely well, and it's a lot of fun. But the downside is the story is bad. because it's so convoluted with 4 different campaigns, 8 characters or 7 characters, whatever. It's just too much. It's way too much going on. Leon's story was great. It brought back the horror elements, but they also baited us with that, right? So if you remember back when they were advertising or doing the marketing for this game, they said, oh, we're going back to the horror, we're going back to the roots and all that. And they just kind of baited us with Resident Evil 6 using Leon's campaign, only for us to find that it was full of action stuff because of Chris and Jake and Rebecca and Piers. Like, not Rebecca. I wish it was Rebecca. Sherry. Jake, Sherry, Chris, and Piers. Like, their story was just like straight up action. And it was just like, oh, come on, man. But it did it well. Like, the action was very well executed. But there was a lot of missed opportunities in the game. Chris Redfield should have died. They could have had or should have had a Chris and Jill campaign or a Chris and Rebecca campaign. I think that would have been a really good opportunity that they missed. You also could have had a Leon and Claire reunion. You could have had a Leon and Chris reunion. Like, there's just so much stuff that you could have done. Although I know story-wise why they didn't have Claire in there, which we're going to get to in the other game that we're going to talk about in a little bit. All right, going back now. Resident Evil Remake. That's an S. That is definitely high S for me. They did everything well in this game. The horror was there. The gameplay, going back to the tank controls, felt really, really good. Everything was very, very put together. It was the execution was very tight. The survival horror aspect was back for this game for sure. Plus, they added some extra bonuses with like the Crimson Head zombies, and it was actually terrifying again, because I remember when I first played the game, walking through that hallway where the first Crimson Head is, you're like, oh, that's a dead zombie. Why is that zombie just dead? You don't know. And then like a little bit through the game, he comes to life, and you're just like, oh my god, and he's running at me. Oh my god, and he's got claws. What is this? I remember that. And it was just so, because you're like, why do I gotta burn the zombie bodies for? I don't understand this. What's the point of this? Yeah, that's why. And then there's new bosses, and Lisa Trevor was freaking scary. The Crimson Head zombie boss was great. Jan was a great boss fight. Like, everything about it was amazing. The dialogue was so much better. It was just a fun game to play, and I played the living hell out of Resident Evil 1 Remake. That is, in my opinion, the best game for that Resident Evil's put out. So, just FYI, nothing's knocking that down. Resident Evil 0. That's a C. I don't know if I would rather play Resident Evil 0 or Code Veronica or Resident Evil 5 more than the other. Like, I don't know where I would put this. And the thing is, like, I feel like they're all kind of just all together in the same C rank. Like, there's no high C, no low C. It's all the same, right? Because Resident Evil 0, the game was good. The train portion of the game was a lot of fun, but the item management system was horrendous. Like, it's like, oh, I gotta drop this item. Oh, I gotta go back to get the item that I dropped. Oh, you're making me do that with the items, and swapping the items back and forth. It was annoying. It was annoying. The management system the item management system could have been so much better in that game. That's why it's going to be ranked as low as it is. Also, I feel like a lot of the story, there's like a lot of plot holes in this. Plus, we haven't seen Billy since Resident Evil 0, which I kind of miss. Like, I would like to see another game with Billy, but there's a lot of plot holes in Resident Evil 0 when it comes to the other games. Like, you go from Resident Evil 0 to the original Resident Evil, and Rebecca doesn't mention a single damn thing about the events that happened in Resident Evil 0, so it's just kind of weird like that. I don't know, but Resident Evil 0 gets a C rank. Next game, The Outbreak. Okay, so Outbreak File 1 and File 2. Here's the first one. You're gonna get a B rank on that. they're good games, really good games. Actually, I'm gonna put File 2 before File 1. They're really good games. I recently just bought them on the PS2 myself for my collection. Before that, I had to play them on emulator. Solid gameplay. It brings us more story, right? Because then it's the survivors of Raccoon City making their way through the outbreak. It's fantastic. It's basically what I would have wanted Resident Evil 3 Remake to be. Like, I would love to have like bonus modes for, well, not even a bonus mode, just like extra story in Resident Evil 3 Remake to be Outbreak. Like, that would be fantastic, because then it's like, okay, you got a ton of replay value in that one then. Especially like if multiplayer mode, but instead they're doing Project Resistance. I mean, Project Resistance is what we thought Outbreak would have been. Next game we have the Umbrella Chronicles. Umbrella Chronicles, I really like Umbrella Chronicles. It gave us a lot of story that we didn't have regarding Wesker. Like, basically, that's what Umbrella Chronicles is about. It's about Wesker. He's narrating the entire story from Resident Evil 0, 1, and 3. Plus, it gives us more story that we didn't have in Russia, I believe it was. And honestly, I would love a game to expand upon that story in Russia and the fall of Umbrella. It was fantastic. Oh, and the other thing about Resident Evil 5, you know what? I'm going to put Resident Evil 5 high C. And now I just realized, I just remember that. Resident Evil 5 gave us some of the best DLC, you know, when DLC became a thing. With Resident Evil 5 Lost in Nightmares, where you play as Jill and Chris. That was fantastic. But anyways, but yeah, so Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles gave us a really good story with the fall of Umbrella, and I would love a game expanded upon that. That was because then that would give us another game with Chris and Jill, and even though Chris isn't my favorite character, I would love a game where we play as Chris and Jill to explore that story and make it much more fleshed out. I feel like that's something that's an extremely missed opportunity. Maybe you call it Revelation 0. I don't know. But I think that would be really good. Darkside Chronicles. Darkside Chronicles. A low B. Low B. Nothing's going to be lower than Darkside Chronicles on the B. I debated putting this on C, but no, it's not as, in my opinion, not as bad as Resident Evil 5, Code Veronica, and 0. And not that they're bad. They just have bad stuff in it that makes me dread playing the game. Darkside Chronicles I really enjoyed. It's Leon narrating the story from Resident Evil 4 Leon. And he's talking about, and the game takes place before Resident Evil 4. It fills in the gaps because in Resident Evil 4 we get introduced to Krauser and we know nothing about Krauser and his interaction with Leon. This game tells the story of Leon and Krauser, as well as revisiting Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil Code Veronica, and Ada's story as well, and dealing with a new story with Leon and Krauser, and I think I think it's in South America, something like that. And again, I would love another game centered around that. Like just take that story and tell that story with Leon and Krauser working together. That would be absolutely fantastic of a game, like for real. Expand upon those right there. You got two Capcom. You got two brand new games right there. I'm giving you advice on what you can do. You can make those games scary. You know, do it. Okay, so a missed opportunity in Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles is the fact that they don't have Resident Evil Survivor in there. Resident Evil Survivor, which we'll get to in a minute, it can be remade in a good way, and I feel like, you know, not having a Resident Evil Survivor or Dead Aim or whatever in Darkside Chronicles was a missed opportunity, because it's a rail shooter game, and you might as well have the gun games in there. So, speaking of Resident Evil Survivor, it's going to be a D. It's going to be an E. The gameplay's bad. It's really bad. I think the only good thing about it is the fact that it is tied in with Leon right after Resident Evil 2. how Leon sends his friend Ark Thompson to go investigate Umbrella and in one of their islands or whatever, and I don't remember what the island is called. I feel like if they remade the game into a legit game and fleshed out the story a lot more, then we could actually get a really terrifying story, because this game basically, the island that you investigate turns out to be a tyrant factory, and you gotta fight a bunch of tyrants in the game, which I think would be a fantastic story. Like, that would be fantastic fleshed out game, because that would be freaking terrifying to be fighting a horde of tyrants. So next, Resident Evil Dead Aim. You're getting an E2. That's not a good game. It's not. I played this in the arcades. It's not a good game, man. What is this? Damnation 2. Why is that there? I don't even know what that is. So I'm gonna not even rank that, because I don't know what that is. Resident Evil Gaiden. Okay, Resident Evil Gaiden, you're gonna get a D, only because you're non-canon, and you kind of left us on a cliffhanger. That's the only reason. Like, it was good story, or decent story execution for Game Boy at the time. They could have done something with that, but they didn't. They took the story of Leon getting infected and made Resident Evil 4 with that, which is it's fine. It's fine. Umbrella Corps F, Raccoon City F. High F. Doesn't matter. F. 3D Mercenaries. I mean, you get a D for that. You get the D. It's the mercenary mode. People like the mercenary mode, but still, eh. Resident Evil 7. Okay, Resident Evil 7. I'm gonna give an A. Hear me out. It was scary. If you ever played this game in VR, it's scary as shit. It was focused on horror. They took a lot of inspiration from a lot of different American classic horror films, such as Evil Dead, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and all of that. And it was scary, and I loved it. I absolutely loved Resident Evil 7. There's people complaining that Ethan's kind of bland, and I agree Ethan is bland, but there's a reason for that, because you are supposed to be Ethan. Everything that Ethan says, pretty much you're thinking. I mean, that's the whole purpose of having a character that you embody yourself into, and the character themselves is a shell. That's the whole reason for it. The boss character, the bosses, or the character designs of Jack. Jack was terrifying. Oh my god, I love Jack because he is so scary. Lucas as a psychopath is amazing. The only thing that hurts Resident Evil 7 is the Not a Hero DLC. I did not like it. It was too action based. It was bland. Like, you didn't need Chris Redfield. I would have loved to have seen, instead of Chris Redfield, I would have loved to have seen Jill show up, because we've seen enough Chris, right? We've seen enough Chris. Have Jill come out of that helicopter and be like, name's Valentine, and help Ethan there. Like, that's what they should have done. Not freaking Chris Redfield. I'm sorry. Capcom's got a hard on for Chris Redfield. I don't know what it is. But they really shouldn't have Chris Redfield show up there. It should have been Jill. But it was a lot of fun. A very good game. Revelations. That's getting a B. That's actually gonna be let's go high B, and I'm actually putting both of them at the same time. Revelations 2 higher than Revelations 1. They were scary, right? So Revelations 2 was scarier than Revelations 1. The atmosphere alone of Revelations 2 is absolutely fantastic. It did have a couple of glitches or whatever, but the gameplay itself, the mechanics were fantastic. Claire was an absolute badass in the game, and in my opinion, the whole story of it, where if you get scared, you get transformed into a hideous creature, whatever, I think is just amazing. I loved it. I love the fact that they brought Barry back in Revelations 2. It was it was so much fun to be able to play as Barry again, and the fact that the game is self-aware, right? So it makes fun of the cheesy dialogue in the first Resident Evil game with Claire sandwiches instead of Jill sandwiches. Barry saying, "Who's the master of unlocking now?" And then at the end, Barry getting his action hero moment, and Moira saying, "Dad, let me help you," and he's like, "No, I always need you, but for now, I have this." Like, that's just awesome because it's so self-aware and it's absolutely fantastic. So now we get to Resident Evil 2 Remake. Where does Resident Evil 2 Remake go in my top Resident Evil games? It's an S rank. It doesn't outdo Resident Evil 4. Doesn't outdo the original Resident Evil Remake, but it's an S rank. Everything that they do well, they do well. Like, they execute it extremely well. The atmosphere is fantastic. The way that the settings are extremely dark and gloomy. The police station, like, basically mostly out of power. It's amazing. It's amazing. It made me terrified. The fact that Mr. X chases you around with an AI is scary. Just hearing the stomps throughout the police station. Oh my god. It's so scary. And playing as Leon and Claire with the RE engine, everything it just looks amazingly well done. The zombies look freaking terrifying. The lickers are scary as shit. I loved everything about it, except that it did not have the zapping system, and that side A and side B really didn't do much after you got through the beginning of the game. Because after you reached the beginning of the game and got out of the police station, everything just became the same. That was my biggest complaint. That was the biggest complaint that everybody else had. But the fact that they were able to take what we loved about Resident Evil 2 and remake it, make it scarier than the first one, or than the original Resident Evil 2, and be able to give us something that feels like a brand new experience. That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So that is my tier list, guys. Let me know what you guys think of my tier list. I'll do another one with my favorite ones versus the top ones, and I will tell you why they are my favorite ones and why some of them are not my favorite ones. But for now, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe if you guys are new, all of that stuff. Stay tuned for more Resident Evil content, because I'm going to be doing much more Resident Evil content on the channel. I'm going to try to do at least a few videos a week. It's just I've been busy on a podcast. Stay tuned for that as well. But thank you so much for watching and your continued support. I will see you guys later. Peace out, guys.